Hey, welcome back to the Ready State. As I get a little bit further in my training career, one of the things that I've continued to try to appreciate are what are the masters thinking? Why are they thinking that way? Why were they making the decisions they made that were more difficult for me to understand a decade ago? And one of the trends we continue to see is loading in a split position, from Cal Dietz to Mike Boyle, right, to Frans Bosch, to spending more time on a single leg turns out to be maybe really good for athletic development. Now, I'm not talking about GPP, like, necessarily just getting fitter, right? Putting out wattage, moving joints and tissues. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about how do we take that GPP and start making it sports preparation training. And one of the things that I see a lot of is well-intentioned people doing a lot of single leg work. Now, when I see single leg work, what I tend to see is a lot of very slow isometric motions, which isn't necessarily the way that the single leg works when I need to move and cut and jump and absorb force on a single leg. Or I see a lot of slow loaded movements like a heavy step up, right? Or a walking lunge. What we don't see is a lot of ballistic motion unless we're doing plyos. And so somewhere in between that we have plyo jumping, right? Which is really great, and we love springiness, we love jump roping, but there is a gap in the middle. And one of the ways that I feel like it's easy to load that gap is to use this box method from Frans Bosch and spend a little time going from double leg to single leg. And what we're doing here is potentially taking the hip, going from a double leg flexed position, extending, and then translating forward into some hip extension, which looks a lot like how I would initiate a lot of movement, right? The translation of being able to have control and then still express that control as that leg moves into extension. So however you do this, with a plate, with dumbbells, with a barbell, going overhead, we think that this is a great way to make some of your basic training work a little bit more for you. You're probably doing some iteration of a muscle snatch, or you're doing some iteration of, a hang power snatch, right? That's probably in your programming already. But suddenly you can do that same kind of idea and makes your kettlebell swing more interesting, right? I've got even pressure through the foot. I'm working on jumping and then translating into this single leg overhead position, butt squeeze, all 5 of my toes in contact. So if that feels too aggressive, then certainly it can be done the same way with just a dumbbell into a front rack position. Now, the magic here is that pretty soon we can take that into a single leg stance. So now I can do all of this work, which looks like isometric deadlift kinds of things, and learn to create force off that single leg in a non-rebounding way. I can do it from, when I'm doing bounding, I'm always taking energy from a single leg, absorbing it, and returning it. We don't see is a lot of generation from a single leg. So what's nice about this position, I get to work on my foot shape, worked on integrating these ideas, but now I can either make that eccentric, I can do an isometric at the bottom, I can do those pauses, I can change my position, this leg becomes a kickstand, whoop, and we have a wonderful way to start to challenge that single leg work. And this, as an accessory piece or as a priming piece for all our more skilled work, has been a wonderful addition to our program that we've been messing around with for a year and a half now at the Coaches Lab. And what you'll see is that when we have athletes who are more competent at actually taking and expressing full hip extension, not just extending the hip, we see better hip function in deadlifts, power clean, snatches, those things, and running goes up. What we end up doing too, loading this position and extension with the foot engaged and being springy, it's money, money, money. So while you're at home, that's a chair, that's a box, that's a curb, that's a bench, grab your dumbbell, make that single leg work for you.